These 15 times the world almost ended will shock you to the core, even though they, thankfully, left the Earth's core intact. Armageddon was almost a real-life event, both in the olden days of yore and in the 21st century. These near apocalypses, whether due to mechanical failures, miscommunications, natural disasters, or brushes with cosmic and nuclear events, almost ruined everyone's day at some point in the history of the Earth. When the Mayan calendar supposedly indicated that the apocalypse was headed for us in 2012, they weren't that far off. As it turns out, a solar superstorm in the summer of 2012 narrowly missed blasting planet Earth. That's just one of the many times humanity and all of Earth's creatures have escaped extinction by the metaphorical skin of their teeth. In fact, our planet was familiar with the end is near concerns or real apocalypses well before Y2K hysteria. The Black Plague possibly killed as many as 200 million human beings, and they don't even want to hear the number when it comes to the Spanish flu pandemic of the early 1900s. From comets to volcanoes to accidentally announcing nuclear war and setting off rockets, these are the times that the end of days was almost just around the corner. 15 times the world was almost completely destroyed. Number 15. Simulation confused with reality. The movie War Games is a lot like what actually happened in 1979. The Pentagon thought 1,000 Soviet nukes were headed towards America when an Air Force officer checked out a simulation of exactly that. His computer happened to be hooked up to the mainframe in government control rooms, and the US got ready to launch. Number 14. Spanish flu. The 1918 influenza pandemic infected 500 million people and killed 3 to 5% of the entire globe's population. One of history's deadliest natural disasters killed 10 to 40% of those it infected and may have taken the lives of 25 million individuals over just 25 weeks. It topped the charts, killing more humans in 1 year than the Black Death in 100 years and killed more in 24 weeks than AIDS did in 24 years. Number 13. Yeltsin almost nukes America. The year was 1995 and the Cold War was over, but when Russia saw what looked exactly like a US ballistic missile on its way, President Boris Yeltsin opened a briefcase with the nuclear codes for the first time. With 10 minutes to figure out whether or not to nuke America, Yeltsin ultimately, and fortunately, got word that it was a science experiment he hadn't been warned about. Number 12. Comet Hyakutake. The Great Comet of 1996 was great in size, but the opposite of great in potential effect. It was the closest approach to Earth of any comet in the previous 200 years. Amateur astronomer Yuji Hyakutake saw it approaching us, leading astronomers to notice X-rays being emitted from a comet for the first time ever. Number 11. Cuban Missile Crisis. The closest we ever came to completely annihilating human existence came during a combination of missteps in 1962. On October 25th, an American Air Base guard activated the wrong alarm, which signaled World War III from Wisconsin. The next day, America accidentally launched 2 missile tests in Russia because they had been scheduled before the crisis began. Number 10. 2012 Solar Storm. In the summer of 2012, a massive cloud of hot plasma erupted from the sun and went through our planet's orbit. Had it happened a single week earlier, Earth would have had GPS errors, radio blackouts, and fried satellites. In fact, resulting power blackouts would have been so bad that most of us would have had trouble flushing the toilet. Number 9. 1961 Faded Giant. Idaho Falls almost blew itself up when an SL-1 reactor went off and caused a nuclear disaster. Emergency officials could not go into the control room because of absurdly high radiation levels. When they did, they found 3 victims, one of whom was pinned to the ceiling and impaled by a control rod due to the explosion. Number 8. 1950 Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow is a code name for a nuclear incident, which is exactly what happened in August of 1950. During the Korean War, a B-29 headed for Guam crashed at a California airbase. The result? 5,000 pounds of explosives were detonated, 19 people died, and if the bomb had been armed with its fissile capsule, which thankfully it wasn't, potentially 100,000 people could have been killed. Number 7. The Black Plague. One of the worst pandemics in the history of civilization. Up to 200 million people were killed by the plague. The blame can likely be placed at the feet of Asian rat fleas and black rats that traveled with merchants. Not only was Europe's total population nearly cut in half, but the world population as a whole diminished substantially in the 14th century. Number 6. NORAD says Armageddon is nigh. In the winter of 1971, a teletype operator stuffed the wrong tape into an alert system machine. So instead of saying, "This is only a test," it said that the President of the United States was about to broadcast an emergency alert. 45 terrifying minutes later, NORAD realized their error. Number 5. Bonilla Comet. In 1883, hundreds upon hundreds of fragments from a comet narrowly missed Earth by 400 miles. The comet got its name from Jose Bonilla, the astronomer who saw the nearly catastrophic comet, which broke up in front of the Sun and sent those fragments towards Earth. Their impact would have been unprecedented and nightmarish. Number 4. The Carrington Event. If the massive solar storm of 1859 happened today, civilization would be in chaos. After 2 fireballs erupted from sunspots, telegraph communications around the globe were destroyed. The sky was so bright that people thought the morning had begun, but really it was a solar flare with the energy of, wait for it, 10 billion, with a B, atomic bombs. Number 3. Mount Tambora Volcano. 1816 was known as the year without a summer after an Indonesian volcano erupted in grand style. It was, in fact, the biggest volcanic eruption in history. 71,000 people died, and the volcanic winter was part of many resulting climate anomalies. The worst famine of the 19th century was a direct result of this volcano, as it killed livestock and crops all around the world. Number 2. Computer chip declares nuclear war. In 1980, a computer chip malfunctioned in North America Aerospace Defense Command computers, weirdly showing the number 2 when it was supposed to show the number 0. That's why the Air Force freaked out when they saw 220 incoming missiles on the way. This 46-cent computer chip resulted in American bombers preparing for takeoff, nukes on deck. Number 1. Blown fuse almost sets off. The 1961 radar sites built by the Air Force to detect Soviet attacks suddenly died. The Air Force's conclusion? Russia just nuked all our radar sites and Armageddon is nigh. The Air Force waited for 12 minutes to hear whether or not to commence doomsday until they heard the radars went off due to an overheated fuse in a Colorado relay station. Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay informed about our upcoming videos because more incredible content is on the way.